A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another book review today. So, cheers. This is Death Instinct by Bentley Little. Now, Bentley Little is a horror author that I've been actually reading quite a lot of. This is his third novel. I reviewed his first two books, absolutely love them. This one, however, is a little bit different. It's part horror and part kind of detective fiction, which I thought was very interesting. This is going to be a spoiler-filled review because this book literally gets batshit crazy at the end. So if you don't want to have this book spoiled for you, let's just say absolutely fucking loved it and highly recommend it to anyone out there who's interested in the older horror from the early 90s. But if you want to know what the fuck I'm talking about, stick around for the next episode of... Okay, where do I begin with this one? You know what? I'm going to start on the negatives. So, cheers. There are some plot points in this that are never actually resolved for the reader. And that to me was very frustrating. There were certain aspects of the main character that I wished we had seen resolved at the end of the novel. Pardon me, but you never do find out about that. So the main character is a woman called Kathy. Now, when we are first introduced to her in the prologue, Kathy is at home with her two brothers. She's a young, preteen. And she has two brothers, David and Billy. And Billy comes to her bedroom and says David's going to do something really crazy. So she goes into David's room and David is in the closet. David is an older brother. Billy's an older brother. David is in the closet. He comes out completely naked, talking about some naked circus thing. And Kathy, he's waving his dick in his sister's face, Kathy's face. And she flees to her bedroom. And that's kind of the opening of the book. We find out that Kathy has been living in her family home with her father all this time. And that house is across the street from a murder house. Basically, when they were children, the father who lived across the street killed his child and his wife and then ultimately killed himself, and it forever became known as kind of the murder house. And Kathy, who is now about 25 years old, working in a bookstore, notices that there are some people moving in across the street into the murder house. Now, at the same time, we get this relationship between her and a 9 or 10-year-old kid that lives a few houses down called Jimmy. There's no other children in the neighborhood, so Jimmy has basically latched onto her because she treats him like he's an adult. And so they have this kind of weird dynamic. Now, Kathy is living with her father, who he's not abusive, so to speak, but he does belittle her quite a lot. There seems to be some kind of early onset dementia thing happening. So that's kind of a storyline that plays out. Now, the main plot is murders. There's a series of murders that have been happening, and the detective in charge, a man named Alan Grant, is trying to find a link between these murders because they're not the same. The first murder has an elderly man that has been skinned. The second murder has a woman who has all of her bones broken, but none of her skin is actually broken. So she succumbs to those wounds. And they just go on and become kind of more and more vicious, more and more dark. Now, the person that moved in across the street is a woman called, I believe, Katrina. Her last name is West, and Jimmy and Kathy go across the street one day to welcome her to the neighborhood, and they discover that she has a son around Jimmy's age, but the son is has Down syndrome. I know this is the inappropriate word, but he is mentally retarded. That's the word used in the book. That's not my word. Just all the PC people, just keep that in mind. So this boy kind of is pretty much locked in a bedroom on his own. And when Kathy and Jimmy go to meet him, his name is Randy. He throws a soccer ball at Jimmy's face and kind of hurts him a little bit. And so they leave, and Jimmy kind of doesn't feel good with what happens, naturally so. Now we come to another subplot about Jimmy, where he's being targeted by two school bullies who are in the 5th grade, so they're older than him. And the reason they're targeting Jimmy is because one of the bullies had a friend who said something to Jimmy, and Jimmy called him a wiener. So now they're out to get revenge, and they're going to beat him up. So Jimmy's kind of scared that is going to take place at some point. The detective investigating the murders comes into the bookstore one day that Kathy works at, and they kind of hit it off and go out on a date. So we have that kind of connection happening. Now, the murders keep going. The police are getting kind of antsy about what's going on. Kathy suspects that the retarded boy across the street is the one that's actually committing these murders. He's been kind of coming into her backyard and looking through her bedroom windows and things like this. And then she sees a television program one night about savants, either with Down syndrome or who are autistic, and they have a talent for one particular thing. On the television show that she's watching, it's a little girl with Down syndrome who can listen to music and play it back almost immediately on the piano. So she starts to think that maybe Randy is a savant, but his talent is murder. She brings this idea to the detective that she has been dating a few times, but he kind of dismisses her, which pisses her off quite a bit, understandably so, of course. So she decides to go and break into the house across the street and see if she can find anything. But in between this, Jimmy's father, who, there's a subplot with him as well, that he got sole custody of Jimmy after his divorce just to piss his wife off, and he doesn't really like Jimmy, so Jimmy is kind of like a latchkey kid, so to speak. He gets brutally murdered. Jimmy comes home from dinner at his friend's place, and he finds his dad dead on the toilet seat with his penis cut off and stuffed in his mouth. And we realize that it was actually Randy that did this. Randy had also killed the two bullies at the same time, back like a few days earlier, a few days prior. So Jimmy goes missing. Alan goes to see Kathy about the whole thing. And he tells Kathy, don't do anything stupid. Naturally, Kathy does something stupid. She goes to the West's house, breaks in. This is after she's told the detectives, you've got to investigate this kid. I'm sure this kid has something to do with it. She breaks into the house and goes into a room where she hears muffled noises. She thinks it's Jimmy. And instead, there is a naked man tied to a bed. He has Down syndrome as well, but he has a really big penis that is like fully erect, and he's thrashing around and flopping around. She freaks out. The mother comes home. Katrina comes home. Kathy hides in the closet, and the mother comes into the room and proceeds to have sex with the Down syndrome naked man on the bed. And we find out through some backstory that this naked man was in a mental hospital that the mother, the wife, worked at, and she was so enamored with the fact that he was sexually aroused all the time that she ended up kidnapping him, and they had 2 children, but Randy killed his older brother by snapping his neck through the grates in the crib that the 2 babies were in itself. Kathy realizes that Randy is a savant at murder and his father is a savant at sex. So there is that kind of story. The mother, Katrina, catches Kathy, tells the boy Randy to kill her. Kathy is being attacked just as the detective comes in, nick of time kind of stuff, and ends up saving Kathy, although Kathy gets her arm broken and the little boy gets away. The mother is arrested. The father is taken to a mental hospital. They find in the garage that the little boy has created these devices. They look like toys, but they're designed to kill people. Between this, the detective has actually gone and visited a doctor who informs him that this kind of thing isn't unprecedented, that there was a case where a young boy killed an entire village of people. And so now the detective kind of gets the idea that, yes, this kid has the capacity to turn anything into a weapon and he's pure evil. 2 of the devices go off in various parts of town, killing 5 people. They ultimately realize that Randy is kind of out there, this little Down syndrome boy, 8 or 9 years old. And his ultimate goal is to kill Kathy because his mother kind of asked him to do it. Randy manages to get into the hospital. He kills some people there, kills a few of the police officers that we've come to know during the story, manages to get to Kathy's room. Jimmy, who they found tied up in the garage, is in the hospital as well, and he realizes what is going on. He hears Kathy screaming, so he goes to her room. The police officer that has been guarding her room is dead. Jimmy takes his gun and ends up shooting Randy, but only shooting off some of his fingers. Randy still attacks Kathy with a scalpel and attacks him, and there's this big fight. And Kathy ultimately ends up picking up Randy and throwing him out of the window of the hospital, where his body hits the ground. Now, she doesn't know that prior to all of this, just before she went to explore in the West House, that Randy had in fact killed her father. Everything's kind of resolved. The mother's in jail, the father's in a psychiatric home, the evil kid is dead. The cop and Kathy are dating, which is good. But the thing that annoys me is the David storyline. Her brother, from the beginning, is never resolved. We know that he ran away. We know that he used to skin animals and things like that Kathy knew about it. We never find out why her father was so angry with her all the time. I assume it's because of the David situation, but it's just never brought up again. So that's kind of left unresolved. But all in all, I thoroughly enjoyed Death Instinct. I thought it was a really great book. Let me just bring up the cover again. Yeah. Oh, no cover? What was that? There we go. Death Instinct. I thought it was a really great book. And at the end of the novel, the title kind of really struck me, because they talk about savants having these instincts for doing things. And even though it's a child with Down syndrome and they constantly use the word retarded, he is still the main killer. And I thought that was kind of cool. So there you go. Death Instinct by Bentley Little. Cannot recommend this author enough. I'm thoroughly enjoying his work. And I look forward to reading more of his stuff in the future. So, here's to horror. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, leave a comment, hit the notification bell so you don't lose out on any videos that I put out. But most importantly, stay safe, have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll see you in the next one. Oh, read a fucking book, people.